miss you so. Get the whole thing shaking when we hit the floor. Yeah, we're just getting started. Let's see where it goes. Harder than the summer. Harder than the summer. Feeling the heat. We got everybody burning at 100 degrees. Harder than the summer. You know what I mean. It's that old school drop top, won't let you down. It's that hush, hush, here it comes, talk of the town. Make your head stand up and your chin hit the ground. Get you all fired up, keep working it out. Harder than the summer. Harder than the summer. Feeling the heat. We got everybody burning at 100 degrees. Harder than the summer. You know what I mean. Harder than the summer and I'm feeling the heat. Harder than the summer and you know what I mean. Harder than the summer and I'm feeling the heat. Harder than the summer. Harder than the summer. Harder than the summer. Harder than the summer. Feeling the heat. We got everybody burning at 100 degrees. Harder than the summer. You know what I mean. Harder than the summer and I'm feeling the heat. Harder than the summer and I'm feeling the heat. We got
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the Speedsters live chat. This is Lewis. I'm your host of this weekly YouTube live broadcast, and this is a show that is dedicated to help you go faster and train smarter. And today with me is Dan Bigham, all the way from UK. For those of you who are new to the video cast, this is a long dive. Be prepared to spend 50 minutes of your time as we go into a subject matter with an expert in a prolonged period of time. So Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, enjoying what was left of the British summer, and it looks like it's turned now, and the rain's coming.
Yes. Well, we are very happy to have you on the show. We have been back and forth on Instagram for a few times to work out a date that works for you and for us over here. Now, for our audience, if you're tuning in, the benefit of joining us live is that you can post questions live. Just go into the YouTube comment box, type your question away, and we'll be picking them up live on the show. So Dan, you are a person of many talents. So I understand that you did not go through the national federation system where you were a national junior and youth, and then work your way up to the elite and go to the Olympics. That wasn't really your path. Can you tell us how you go from an ordinary bloke to one that is smashing it at World Cups and then Commonwealth Games and World Championship? Can you tell us your path to be coming to a competitive cyclist?
So I definitely wasn't a youth or a junior in the cycling world. I didn't really properly start cycling until it was about my third year of university, so it would have been 1920. So relatively speaking, quite late to the game. I'd gone to university to study motorsport engineering, and was just enjoying that. I've always been sporty, played every sport under the sun: football, rugby, squash, tennis, swimming, whatever. Just as a kid, parents were happy for me to just crack on and enjoy sport for what it was, rather than push me to be a specifically focused athlete in whatever sport it might be. So that was quite nice. It meant that I had the freedom to just enjoy sport and be competitive. And then when you go to university, you kind of dial in on your friendship groups and what you enjoy. And I think, well, originally it was athletics that I really sort of went down that route. But there I met a guy called Jack Lawler Anderson, who was a long course triathlete. He pushed me down the triathlon route. I'd always been keen to have a go at, and I think with what I was studying at the time, it tied in quite well. But soon got injured, as most triathletes do. Can't run, and I couldn't really swim, to be honest, at the level required to be competitive. So that sort of pushed me towards cycling. So by 2014, 2015, I'd just come back from a year at Mercedes AMG Petronas. I was working in the aero department in Formula One.
Yes.
And come back, finished up my bachelor's, and then went on to do a master's, and just decided to focus more on the cycling side of things, which definitely suited my strengths. And it meant as well a lot of my university modules I could kind of tweak from being motorsport related towards cycle sport,
Yes.
which is pretty cool. So things like lap time simulation and a lot of the aerodynamics related modules were more cycling focused. Left university, I worked for a company consulting with British Olympic sports teams for about 6 months or so. But at the time, my cycling was really taking off, and I got an offer to ride for what was then an elite national team. Took a race at basically most of the big races in the UK.
Yes.
And that went pretty well, and I've stayed with them since. So they've grown from what was then Planet X Northside through Brother NRG, Ribble World Type Pro Cycling now. So been in the same team for what is now 5-6 years, which is quite cool. But good bunch of guys, and it works well. So that's all on the road, and the road progressed quite well. But I always had a real interest in the track, having done testing on an outdoor velodrome back at university, and then getting onto an indoor. You start to realise just how clean and how good the data is, and as a nerd, that's really exciting. I was always keen to have a go at the IP, and I'd had a go at the British University Champs, which went well. I rode a 3:38.1. Was it 182 or 192? I was 2,000ths of a second off getting in the gold medal final.
Wow.
First IP.
That's
Anyway,
the university games.
That was British University Games, yes.
Uh-huh.
It would have been 4:38, not 3:38. 4:38, 192, and then went on, and just over a year later went to the nationals with Charlie, and then obviously Johnny and Tipper, and we had a proper tilt at the IP, the kilo, and the team pursuit, and I guess that's where history all began. And,
Yes.
it all went pretty well.
Now, is there any advantages or disadvantages to coming to the sports late? I mean, in your case, there's no disadvantage. But for a lot of cycling federations out there, the path it's set. You have to be in the juniors, and then you have to be elite, and then you have to from there you progress to the international scene. So if you've missed out the cut as a junior, the chances of someone like you stepping in and being competitive at the highest level, that's pretty unheard of. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's become more commonplace of late. Probably there's a lot more transfer or transitional athletes, whatever you want to call them, coming from different sports at a later age.
Yes.
And there's a lot to be said for that as well. There's plenty of studies out there saying that kids shouldn't specialise until they're 15, 16, 17, 18 even.
True.
And I do agree that so many athletes don't seem to hit their stride, their best, until they're well developed, and also sort of psychologically aware of what this being competitive and being focused on the sport really means. Because when you're a kid, 12, 13, 14, 15, a lot of the time it's just doing what your parents say or doing what your coach says. Whereas when you can do it of your own volition, then you can commit a lot more and start to appreciate what every little decision you make and how that affects your performance. So I do understand why the pathways exist, and historically they've worked, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to achieve best performance.
Yes.
And I think that's where a lot of systems tend to fall down right now. They rely heavily on talent ID from a young age, and not talent ID or transfer talent from a greater age of 20, 25, 30 even, especially in female sports. Yeah.
So you guys are living examples that there is hope for people that is outside of the system. Now, you also work with the Denmark national team, all right, preparing for the Olympics. Can you tell us what is your role with the Danes?
We have this rolling joke within the team that we just make up our own titles, which is funny. So there's myself, Martin Toff Madsen, and Casper van Volsack, who are the three core on the sort of R&D engineering front. We've got Mads as well, who's just a great mechanic, but also just generally switched on guy. Another guy called Andreas, who works sort of half within the cycling and I'd say half within a load of other sports as well, of rowing and whatever else. So there's kind of 3.5 to 4 of us in the R&D department, and pretty much we have full autonomy on everything technologically related, whether it's equipment selection, rider position, data analysis, modeling, predictions, all that kind of stuff. I guess if you were to put a title on it, I'd be like a performance engineer, but pretty much have control to dabble in whatever we think is going to help us really go fast. So it's quite a nice situation to be in. We're all similar age, similar mentality, similar approach. All still competitive as cyclists and enjoy going fast, but on the other hand, we still want to make the team go really quick. So it's a good little setup, and we can just crack on and do what we need to do.
Wonderful. I have listened to some of the other podcasts that you were in, and you seem to thrive and you seem to work well in an environment that is transparent, open, and just everybody pulling together rather than a very highly stiff, structured, hierarchical kind of like setup. So that's pretty cool to see that you are working outside of the establishments and you're creating results. Now, how does it feel to you are UK national and you're working for a foreign country, foreign team, you're smashing world records 3 times in 2 days, you're beating Team GB, tell us, how does that feel? Is it bittersweet? I'm just speculating here. Can you just fill us in, please?
Yeah, I guess for some of the listeners as well, it's worth giving a bit of background that the relationship with GB has been varied over the years. So myself and Charlie, after our first breakthrough season on the track, we both trialled for GB. So that was late 2017, early 2018. And Charlie used to be on the programme along with his brother Harry. They both got kicked off when they were youths, juniors. Didn't fit in. I think that's where the talent ID fell down of like, you are not doing what we're saying to get out. And then lo and behold, they became probably 2 of the best cyclists that Britain have had. So myself and Charlie were there, and to be honest, we were doing pretty well, I'd say. By all accounts, we were fastest or first or second fastest in pretty much most of the trials, whether it was flying laps, kilos, IPs, doing team pursuit stuff together, being the last man standing, whatever you want to do. But I guess I didn't fit in. I'm one who likes to ask questions and know why we're doing things for the right reasons. And I had a lot of ideas too, and I was like, oh, why don't we do this? Or have you thought about doing that? And a lot of that did not fit well, especially with the head coach at the time. He wasn't so keen on buying into those kind of ideas and wanted to stick with his stuff. And I wasn't selected for the world champs, they had 2 reserves, and I wasn't even one of the 2 reserve riders, which was a bit mad. And then going into the Commonwealth, after the Worlds, going into the Commonwealth Games, I literally got told that it would take an outstanding amount of work for me to be in the starting lineup for the team pursuit at the Commie Games. So I was reserve rider there as well, and said, just tell me what I need to do. Give me a lap split, a target time for a kilo, an IP for a team pursuit, for number of laps pulled, whatever. Just tell me what I need to do, and I'll do it. Couldn't give me a number, couldn't break it down objectively. Just said it would be very hard for me to be in the starting lineup, which I took as I don't want to select you. So
it seems that you were not accepted into the team for reasons other than sports performance and timing. So how does that feel to? I mean, everybody in the right mind want to wear the national jersey, race in the biggest stage, because there's so much pride. You talk about representing UK, England. That must be a huge honor. You want to do that, you couldn't do that. You were not allowed to do that, but now you're working with another country and competing against GB, and then smashing records and doing amazing stuff. So when that happened at the World Championship in Berlin, and you guys smashed the Danes smashed the world record 3 times, how does that feel? I mean, as a part of the team, on one hand you are part of the Danish team, on the other hand you could have been one of the riders racing against the Danes. It could have been.
Could have been, should have been, would have been. Who knows? I think the thing about riding for your nation, you're proud of what you're doing and proud of how you've got there and proud of the performance that you're executing. But I think in that track scenario, I wouldn't have been proud of riding in that environment, because I think to exist within that, I wouldn't have been me. I would have been doing something else or behaving how they wanted me to behave, and not being the person I am or the rider I am. And I don't think I would feel proud of that. That I was contorting to fit a system in which I didn't agree. Whereas in Berlin, I was incredibly proud of what they'd achieved, and I hadn't been there a huge amount of time, sort of 4 months or so, but the small changes that we had done and obviously reaped some huge rewards, and they really bought into everything that we've been trying to do. And I think that's probably the most rewarding aspect of working in the Danish Federation. Of there's no red tape, of no major pushbacks against new ideas. It's like, if it's going to make the team go faster, then let's go for it. And to the track side was pretty awesome. I mean, a bit frustrating at the time, because obviously Bolivia and our altitude plans were on the cards, and suddenly having to ride a 46 and then a 44 was a bit of an ask. But I was definitely proud and just pleased to be part of the team. It's
and congratulations to you and the team. Truly amazing stuff. And when we read more about the details of the setup and the kind of equipment that they were using the same bike that they used in Rio 4 years ago. Same wheel sets, similar tires, skin suit not particularly expensive or exotic. And how did they do it? Tell us as much as you can, legally allowed to tell us. What was the secret?
A few different things. So I guess on the equipment front is they were just incredibly well optimized, and we've talked about this in our little group chats. And we literally have the five of us in a WhatsApp chat, and it's pretty much every day we're talking away, whether it's evening, weekends, whatever. I mean, no working hours don't apply. We just want to go fast. So we've always discussed why we thought we went fast, and how everyone goes, well, you weren't even riding like this wheel or that tire or that crank or this handlebar or whatever it might be. It was like, well, actually, it was just incredibly well optimized around it. And I think that's kudos to the work that they've done over the past few years building into this. And then since then, obviously, when I've joined them, we've really pushed on that. And it's kind of, it's just good, solid, hard work and optimization. It's not that there isn't faster equipment out there. I'd be lying if I said we weren't planning to bring more stuff to Tokyo.
Sure,
but,
of course.
I think when we went there, we were pretty happy with where all the riders were and the equipment choices we've made. It's a whole lot of that. But then on the other side, they are just incredible athletes. And I think that's another thing to be said, that I know the power that I can do, and John and Johnny, and to be honest, pretty much most of the riders domestically, it's pretty easy to figure out what power people are doing. And the Danish guys are just a step above. And it's not a huge amount. You're talking 10, 15, 20 watts more, but it's still more than some of the best powers we've ever done. And physiologically, they are just great athletes. You look across the Danish nation in general, they seem to be good against the clock. They went out a lot of time, Charles.
Yes. Well, I have a question that my entire country, cyclists in my country, are dying to ask. And I'm going to put it up here, okay? And I hope it's a question that we have been wondering for, I think, a good 2 years. And I hope that you can clear it for us. This coming right up. Okay, I've seen this picture of, was it Archibald? With with the Johnny Whale, with a Malaysian flag and the whale. So what can you tell us? What's the story behind this? I tried to ask Johnny and he refused to answer me. So I'm ambushing you now. What is the story?
Okay, so this goes back to 2018, the $1 billion whale.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's the story.
So the story of that, we just come back from, she was well past that. So it would have been heading into 2019, 18-19 track season. And we knew we weren't going to get selected for the major events. We weren't going IPs and TPs for GB, and we were getting frustrated by that and started to speak to other nations. And we had nations approach us. I can't can't really say who, but yeah, we had offers here of like, you could join here, you could join there, and it was all too tight towards Tokyo.
Yes.
As you'll know, around all the qualification windows, it starts 2 years out, and if you aren't on that nation in time, then you won't get the points, you won't get to Tokyo.
Yep.
So it was all a bit too late anyway. But one of the ones that we thought would be awesome to join was Malaysia. We obviously, we know like John and Awang and Shah and Fadil and all the guys. We've seen them around at all the World Cups and
Yes.
commies and whatever else. And like, yeah, we should join Malaysia. And awesome, great. And it was just one of those ones of like, Johnny was real keen on the Malaysia thing. So at the start of the year, we all had different. I made all the name badges and had all different flags put on. Like for example, John Scottish, so he had the Welsh flag. Will voted for Brexit, so he got the EU flag. And then with Johnny, he was so keen on that, so he got the Malaysian flag.
This is really funny. By the way, it's an open invitation. Anytime you guys want to swing by Malaysia, we can head over to the track. We have a world-class track here that we can have some fun on, and then we will take you out for some Malaysian food. That is an open invitation. Anytime you want to take this up on us, it's game on. So thank you for clearing that up. That's pretty funny question. Now, tell us a little bit. You have a bicycle next to you. It has WattShop written over it. And for those of us who are viewing and getting to know Dan for the first time, WattShop is a company that Dan has set up to produce high performance boutique cycling componentry. Did I get that right? Okay.
Yeah.
And sitting with you, tell us a little bit about that cockpit with the pink accent. Really beautiful. That is the crown jewel of WattShop. What is that about, Dan?
Yeah. So I guess a lot of people who followed time trialing and the track over the last few years have realised that the cockpit is where most of the changes are coming. That both positionally and also as general components are getting a lot more optimized. So we were probably one of the first teams in the World Cup scene, I think, who are riding more optimized extensions back in late 2017, early 2018.
Mm-hmm.
That was our first generation, our original carbon wasps as they were. We've been through, this is our 5th generation extension now. And just constantly refining, learning more about how to make a good fitting extension, a comfortable one, an aerodynamic one, and one that's nice and adjustable. And this is probably, or definitely is, our top end handlebar set now that we've learned a lot over those few years and sort of rolled it all into one. So it's all designed, optimized, and manufactured in the UK, which is a big thing for us, supporting British engineering. And
wonderful.
we've got a really good manufacturer, literally about an hour from our house, that mostly work in motorsport, but it just means that we know we've got a top quality product. But it's a cockpit and extension system that has just effectively the biggest range of adjustment, as well as being incredibly aerodynamic and stiff. So you can change handlebar grips, you can change your armrest, you can change your angle, your length, your width, your toe in, toe out on the extensions. You've got adjustable Garmin mounts or Wahoo mounts or SRM or Speed Seeker. You can run blips, double blips, Di2 shifters.
Wow.
Just basically gone all in on full adjustability to know, well, as you'll know very well, that if you're trying to improve your aerodynamics, then you need to be able to change your position. If you can't change your position,
yes,
then you're not going to be able to improve.
Yes, some of the setup that comes stock with the certain bicycles are frustrating to make adjustments on. Some are easier, some are just frustrating. So it's pretty cool to see that. Now, beside Cockpit, what does WattShop do? Tell us a little bit, please.
Yeah, so it grew. Well, it started in 2016, March, April time, 2016. So I was doing a lot of different components anyway for myself, so things like waxing chains and making Garmin mounts and that kind of thing. And a lot of people were starting to say at races, like, "Oh, can you wax my chain? Can you do that?" And he thought, well, it's business here. So it kind of rolled out of that, and as someone who's fresh out of uni and trying to support my racing, it made a lot of sense to be self-employed and be able to generate that income and not have to worry about working for somebody else. where I'd kind of struggled with that because I had a lot of my own ideas and wanted to put them into action. So it grew from there, and it started off as chains, and then went through Garmin mounts and finger grips and aero bar plugs and extensions and armrests, and now we've got cranksets and loads of the little bits and bobs everywhere. It's just always small solutions in some aspects, and sometimes massive solutions like obviously our cockpit and crankset. But just trying to develop the best products that we can and really can hang our hat on and use. Most of them have come from the track, that we want to race fast components on the track, so we develop them ourselves, and we don't have to worry about finding a manufacturer to make them. We just get it done that way. And it's just really grown and grown and grown, and off the extension of that has then gone down the route of consultancy for different teams. So
That's
I work
right.
for Canyon SRAM, the Women's World Tour team. I do a little bit for Jumbo Visma as well, the Men's World Tour team.
Yes.
And then, obviously the Danish Federation, and as we discussed, and a little bit with the Malaysian team too.
Wonderful.
So,
So guys, if you're interested in what Dan and his team has to offer, check out their Instagram and Facebook page, WattShop. Check that out. Lots of cool stuff to be had over there. Now, Dan, you talk about being in consultancy as an aerodynamicist, and you provide your consultancy. Basically, people are coming to you, they're paying you. Please help me get faster. That's the business, right? Now, so what, in your experience, in your work, what are the common issues that you have come across that is holding back performance? You have seen loads and loads of cases. Can you just name some of them, please?
Sure. So, I mean, we started off as well with a lot of aero testing to the public, especially 2017, 18, and a little bit into 19. And as much as that's still popular, unfortunately, my time's become quite limited. And we're trying to train up a few more guys that mean we can keep utilising the track and the tunnel, especially when lockdown relaxes. But I think it tends to vary a lot depending on who the athlete is, what level they're at, and what they're trying to achieve, really. I think by far and away the largest limitations tend to be around position, that a lot of people don't tend to put a lot of thought into it. And I guess now it's easy for me to say, like, oh, but you could just do X, Y, and Z, and that would make sense, and you'd probably go quicker. But actually, when I think back, and when I was in university 2012, 13, 14, there's a lot of conflicting information in the public domain, and I think that's quite hard to decipher on what's legitimate and what's not, and why. So, I mean, for example, saddle position's a big one. That can make such a difference aerodynamically, even just you changing your saddle. And I jump between two different ones, so this actually isn't my out and out race saddle. It's one that I'm just testing at the moment to see what it's like in comparison to my dash one. But you can see quite significant area differences in that, whether that's moving your saddle up or down as well, forward or aft, tilting. There's huge differences there. But then you've got people, for example, in the triathlon world saying, no, slam your saddle forward. You want it as far forward as it can go. And then you're like, do you really? What the hell? But then back at university, I was believing that kind of stuff. And then the problem is that obviously proliferates and grows within the public domain, that suddenly you have a lot of people coming in with quite scary positions. And I think sometimes it's hard to get out of that. So sometimes you will have someone come in and their position is pretty poor in both aerodynamics and biomechanics, and the changes you make become very alien to them, and it's hard to adapt in a sort of 2-3 hour session, that you actually quite often have to say, well, look, I think you need to make pretty wholesale changes here. I mean, like 30, 40, 50 mil changes in a lot of different orientations, and then possibly come back when you're a bit more aware of what the bike should feel like and a bit more used to that, and then you can really start to optimize. So I'd say, position tends to be by far and away the biggest one, and I think dialing in your saddle is probably the priority across all optimizations, that you start there and then can work forward.
Now that's interesting, because you are not a bike fitter per se in the traditional sense, but optimizing for aerodynamics require certain amount of bike fitting. So how do you convince people who come to you and say, hey, I've been riding this position, I'm really comfortable in this position, I don't think this adjustment is good for me. How do you prove them? Do you show them data? What do you do?
Yeah, exactly that. So I think comfort as well is mostly determined by familiarity and not so much by actually your body is in its natural comfortable position. That you could spend a lot of time in. I mean, like a good analogy might be a sofa. You could sit on one sofa for years and years and years, and it feels really comfortable. You switch to another one, and you hate it for the first few weeks, right?
Yes.
Which is a weird analogy, but nonetheless, it's very similar with bike fitting. That you make changes, and some people don't deal well with changes, and people are the opposite. And quite quickly, you can figure out actually within a few sessions, is it legitimately uncomfortable, or is it just something that your body needs to adapt to?
Fair enough.
I think that's always pushed on as well, that physiology will adapt to a stimulus, whereas your aerodynamics will not.
Yes.
Your aerodynamics, within reason, are what they are.
Yes.
But your biomechanics and your physiology, your musculature and your tolerance to different contact points and stressors do adapt and do change and do improve.
Yes.
So a lot of the time, it comes down to the data of like, well, we're going to make this change right now. It might feel alien, it might feel uncomfortable,
Yes.
it might feel unstable. However, training this for a handful of sessions, a few weeks, wherever it might be, and then you start to feel, is it actually tolerable?
That's a good point. That's a great point, that aerodynamics is not, how do you say, you can't really negotiate with aerodynamics. If this position is aerodynamic, it is aerodynamic. However, the body, however, can be adapted to the position, but the other way is not true. Now, I have some, you mentioned that, so position is one of them that you see holding people back. What are there any more that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, equipment's always one that's discussed a lot more heavily than position, and probably because position's just so unique. But I think people now are starting to realise that so is equipment, that what works for one person won't necessarily work for another. And I mean, to a certain extent, yeah, things like wheels or tyres have much more crossover ride to rider. That's not always to say that is going to be the case, but yeah, things like helmets and skin suits and overshoes and socks are becoming a lot more optimized at specific positions, speeds, etc. And I think helmets are probably the biggest case for that, and probably the most frustrating one for most people when they say, oh, what helmet should I run? I said, well, ideally you want to go out and buy these 10 helmets and go test them. And they go, we can't afford to drop £2,500 on a load of helmets.
Oh, they can come to you, employ your services, and test 10 helmets.
Yeah, but genuinely, helmets are probably one of the biggest ones, and they're frustratingly individual and unique.
Yes.
But I mean, that's the greatness of it, that I do quite like hunting down new helmets of like, okay, that shape looks a little bit different. It might work with this kind of rider, or we'll go out there and test it. And yeah, it's not always the case. Quite often that there are a handful of helmets that tend to work quite well, but you can often find these unique scenarios where one will work significantly better than another. And had a really good test with a friend of mine. I think it was early this year, maybe January, February time, who came in, and I mean, frustratingly in a way, it was one of the only improvements we found, but we found at 50k an hour about, I think it was 16, 17 watts in a helmet.
15, 17 watts in a helmet.
16 or 17, yeah.
What kind of speed?
50k an hour.
Okay. That's significant.
Yeah, it was pretty sizable
That's
CDA.
significant. Wow.
Yes, he was very happy to go home. I mean, in a way, it's frustrating because you come in, you want to optimize your position, and yeah, we made a few other tweaks that definitely helped him. Mm-hmm. But the biggest one by far and away was a helmet change, which
there you go. So we should go out there and buy 10 helmets. All right. Well, I'm saving up. I have 3 now. I'm gonna get more. Now I would like to get into up the pace of our interview a little bit. I would like to play this game with you, Dan. So it's a rapid fire. Okay. Mm-hmm. Which is more aero? I'm gonna give you 2 options, and then you have to tell me which one is more aero. All right, okay. Really, really fast. Okay, without blinking. Are you ready, Mr. Dan Bigham?
Let's go.
All right, beard versus shaved.
Shaved.
Disc brakes versus rim brakes.
Rim brakes.
Hairy legs versus shaved.
Shaved.
1X versus front derailleurs.
1X.
Race number in pocket versus race numbers pinned.
It depends.
Aero overshoes versus aero socks.
Aero overshoes.
Wait for it. Graham O'Brien versus Dan Bigham.
Oh. Oh God! I pushed Actually, I think I beat his hour record. So does that mean I win?
I think so. Well, it's published out there. His favorite the Aubrey crouch or the Superman position was 0.172. 0.172. So you know your CDA, I'm sure. So thank you for hanging on with that. That was good fun. Now, Dan, I have question from Chan, audience online, asking this question. I'm an Ironman triathlete. What are the UCI illegal equipment in track cycling that I can use to maximize my gain?
Triathlon's such a beautiful, easy sport for that sense. It's frustrating in a way because the regulations are so open, but because they're so open, you can nigh on do it whatever you want. So I mean, there's loads of cool stuff with Ironman. You're going to chuck a ton of hydration and a ton of nutrition on your bike, but you can do really cool stuff with that. So where you put that can be interesting, whether it's even like inside your skin suit, behind your saddle, between your handlebars, and playing about with that. And again, it comes back to this whole it depends and where you should put it and go out there and test it. But it's such like quite an open game really to just crack on and find where the most optimal is for that. Other than that, I think like stuff like wheels and tires are pretty much fast across the board, and there's not anything I would say advise differently on that one. And I think frames are always a fun one that people say, well, actually, if the UCI rules disappeared, how much quicker could you make a frame? And the honest answer is not very much. To be honest, there's not much drag in a frame set, full stop. A lot of it is just around the integration of all those cool little hydration and nutrition solutions that mean you can store all the stuff that you need to get around 4.5-5 hours of racing on the bike.
Very cool.
So I think that's where most of the gains are going to come from in triathlon, and just try and optimize all that because that's where most of the low-hanging fruit will be.
Yes, and without the constrictions of UCI rules, there's so much room to be explored. And like you said, that becomes a problem too. You know, the hand is too high, the hand is too low. Where do we go? That sort of thing. By the way, we have Kyle Gordon. Thank you for joining us. And this is what he says. My money is on Aubrey. Oh, really?
She got a new set of the animal extensions yesterday.
Sorry?
Kyle, I literally had him over yesterday. We fitted the new extensions.
Okay.
So I was telling him about this live chat.
Hey Dan, we got to get some of your Animoy extensions system to Malaysia. You know, we'd love to see it. Okay, Sandy Waller has a question here. Could you elaborate more on the saddle position stuff, please? Because you talk about saddle position affecting aerodynamics. I guess, you know, what do you mean by that, Dan?
Okay, so two things are achieved by your saddle position. You're effectively supporting your body for power production, and how you biomechanically optimize that is a big one. Yes, it works in correlation with the front end. So hip angle is a really interesting one. Medicordi and Stephen Faulkner even to an extended level have done a lot of research in, and this is kind of a slight tangent, but when Steve's paper comes out, that's going to be one that I think a lot of time trialists and bike fitters worldwide are going to find interesting, where he's looked into the physiology, the thermal physiology, the hematology of basically what happens when your hip angle changes doing sort of 20-minute maximal efforts, and where the optimal position lies relative to aerodynamics. So anyway, that was a whole side story. So saddle obviously affects that and affects your ability to produce power, and if you can use it to also dial in your aerodynamics, you want what is effectively the highest watts to CDA ratio that's possible. Unfortunately, your legs are pretty horrific aerodynamically. They're big fat cylinders hanging out in the wind. Yep. So if you look at a frontal profile, even at low yaw of maybe like 2, 3, 4 degrees, you'll see that by far and away the biggest object or biggest area facing you are your legs, and they're also a cylinder, and cylinders are pretty horrific. However, when you bend your leg, it goes from being a cylinder to slightly oval, because the cross section through a bent leg, when you take a sectional slice in longitudinal, is oval. And that's kind of one of the aspects or one of the gains of why lower saddles can, not always, but can be better aerodynamically. So that doesn't always mean as well your power will go up quite often by dropping your saddle. Biomechanically, you tend to get a little bit worse. Comfort tends to drop as well. Sometimes you can get some occlusion of your femoral artery through your hip as well. So there's kind of a few caveats of you may make an aerodynamic improvement and may take a physiological loss. But again, coming back to the whole physiology will adapt and aerodynamics won't, then maybe that's something you can train and recover.
Okay. When can we see this paper that you're talking about? Is that published or?
It's submitted and passed all the review, so I imagine it's going to be published in the next month or so. I don't know what the timelines are in papers and reviews.
Sure.
I'm not a PhD researcher.
Well, if it is out, can you hit us up on your social media? You know, that would be an interesting information to read and find out more on.
Yeah, definitely. It's a cool paper, and I'm getting involved in the sort of next level of it as well, which is trying to tie a bit more real-world aerodynamics and biomechanical tracking into that to really help on the real-world side, because it's all great happening in a lab, but can you replicate that in the real world?
Exactly. Now, we have another question from a live audience. Wardren, one of our cyclists, is asking equipment and position on the bike. Which one should we make changes on first if we are trying to optimize for aerodynamics?
It's a bit chicken or an egg, to be honest, because everything interacts with each other, and it's a constant frustration of mine. Like, for example, if someone came in for an aero test, you start with helmets, find the fastest helmet in their baseline position, and then optimize position, or do you optimize position and then find the fastest helmet within that position? Because every helmet change will also interact with the positional changes that you're making.
True.
But you can't change a helmet, go through a whole cycle of positional changes, change your helmet, do the same thing again, and then try and find the optimal, unless obviously you have unlimited track time, then crack on. I'd say on the whole though, tend to work on position first. The helmet one is more of a unique thing that they do all interact heavily, but for example, like your choice of front wheel or your choice of base bar is not really going to affect your aerodynamics. Yeah, your extensions to a certain extent will, and that's why we've always pushed to have adjustability, and that's what the Anway ones really bring.
Sure.
That you have adjustability within aerodynamic extensions, so you don't have to run an adjustable extension and then have your custom extensions made for however many thousands of pounds to then match that. Actually, you can optimize within it all.
So a lot of people do bike adjustments from toe and then move up to the head. From toe moving up to the head. Is that what do you say about that approach? Is that sound?
Everyone has their own approach and concepts and theories around all that. I think so. Yeah, getting saddle and cleats and shoes and all that dialed in first before you even worry too much about the aerodynamics. So as long as you're in that sort of reasonably optimal biomechanical window, then beyond that, then you can start working on the aerodynamics. And it's something I always try and advise, that before you get onto the track or into the wind tunnel, that you're actually pretty confident that you're within, probably say, plus or minus 20 mil on all those saddle measurements of where you really need to be.
Okay. Now, one of the first, I was talking to Ed from No Show a few weeks back, and the conversation was like, aerodynamic sensor is kind of like the power meter when it was just rolled out, say 20, 25, 30 years ago. Everyone is trying to put their head around how to use it and all that. Now, in terms of power meter and power, we there's a published scale, I think by Hunter and Kogan. If you're 8 watts per kilo, you're world class. If you are like me, 1.5 watts per kilo, you are, you are just a newbie recreational rider. Now, in terms of CDA, do you have like a scale for that? Say for triathlon, for road TT, for pursuit, what would be world-class CDA? Can you give us a scale?
Yeah, I guess the first thing to point out is that your CDA is relative to your power meter. So
sure,
if your power meter overread by 100%, so twice as high, then your CDA is going to be twice as high. So what truly matters, especially for time trials, is watts to CDA.
Yes.
Is why that's like our reported metric in analysis. That, for example, in a team pursuit, when we're in training, we're always aiming to hit at least like 3,500 watts to CDA for our turns. And you can do the maths. So you can either do more power, or you can drop your CDA, or you can do both. So yeah, you can have, I guess, ballpark figures, and let's assume that everyone's power meters read about right. So in the world of sort of long course triathlon, if you're getting towards sort of 2.2, even towards 2.1, then to be honest, you're pretty damn competitive. That's including obviously all the hydration you've got on and the position that you can sustain for 4.5, 5 hours on the bike. So in the world of domestic time trials in the UK, which is probably somewhat equivalent in aerodynamic terms to world tour level, probably even better. If you're not in the sort of 1.8s, even towards 1.7s, it depends how you're measuring, is a whole other thing as well. In the indoor, outdoor, wind tunnels, there's a few caveats, but in that sort of domain, that's where you can be competitive at the top level. You can top 5, top 10 national champs with a fairly decent FTP. And then, in the world of pursuing, again, depends how big you are. So you've got people like Ghana, who are probably more like high 1.8s, low 1.9s, but have 610 watts for an IP, which I'm not. I know that helps the situation a bit.
Yes.
You've pretty much got to be in the 1.6s, give or take, if you want to be world class. That sort of domain is where the best guys sit.
Wow, that's pretty amazing for someone like Ghana to be at 1.6. That's
Ghana's not getting near to 1.6 yet. Not with his size. But like I said, he's got outrageous watts. So his power for an IP is pretty close to our pool power in team pursuit. But he's just a whole lot bigger and not quite as aerodynamic.
So the bigger guy can get away with being less aerodynamic physiologically, that he can't get any smaller, right? But the being bigger generates more power. So you're saying that the bigger guys can get away with that just because by the sheer power output that they are cranking out.
Yeah, it's the pure watts to CDA ratio.
Yep.
It actually tends to be the bigger you are, the easier it is to hit high watts to CDA. Just like the smaller you are, the easier it is to hit high watts per kilo. Which is why you won't see Ghana racing Egan Bernal up a climb in the Tour de France, but you won't see Egan Bernal trying to out-pursuit Ghana.
No way. Not even in a flat course ITT. I don't think Bernal Egan can catch Ghana. No way. Now, so then it's fair to say that if we are smaller cyclists, all the more we should be optimized, because if we are not optimizing that to our advantage already, and we are not generating the kind of like humongous power, we are disadvantaging ourselves.
Yeah, it's an efficiency game, simple as that. And the way you win is by being more efficient. And the shorter duration events do require more power, but nonetheless, you can still win by being efficient. And that's probably something we've championed the past few years. That as athletes, we're not particularly quite world class. We're trying our best and we're pretty close from those power numbers, but like I said earlier, we're not quite at the level of the Danish squad who just have a handful more than us, and that's what the difference can make.
So you're gonna find that 0.005 CDA gained on the Danish, hopefully. Now you have helped plenty of people through consultancy and through the products that you're producing to go faster. All right, you have probably helped a lot of people achieve their dreams, getting onto the podium, etc. What about yourself? What are your ambitions in cycling now? I know that you were trying to break the world record, going to Bolivia, racing in high altitude. What can you tell us about your racing ambition?
Sure. So the Bolivia thing has been put on a fairly significant hold for the time being, as probably a lot of people know. South America aren't having a great time with COVID.
Yes.
Fingers crossed they get a better handle on it. And it's a weird time for everyone with the Olympics getting pushed back, and I feel for a lot of athletes who have lost the ambition or drive when their biggest goal has been pushed back by a year. And to be honest, I feel the same. And I wasn't going to Tokyo. I was just planning to have a go at the team pursuit and the IP record, and the hour as well up at altitude. So that's on hold for the foreseeable future anyway. We hope to head up at some point before Tokyo, but it's all dependent on the COVID situation. So in the meantime, I've been a bit selfish, really, just trying to ride well against the clock individually.
You're going to do an hour record attempt?
Yeah, so that's been high on the cards for a while. I did one back in February in Derby, and that went pretty well.
Yeah, I saw that on Instagram.
Yeah, it was a fun thing to do on a Monday afternoon. I learned quite a bit from it though, and I went in fully censored up, so I collected a lot of really good data that was really helpful for me towards more development on the hour. And since then, yeah, everything's kind of improved. I've found more improvements in position, equipment, and physiologically as well. So when I was over in Denmark just last month, I had a go at, well, not a full hour. I did a 30-minute block and then 2 10-minute blocks off a short break. Basically on British record splits or sea level hour record, whatever you want to call it, Bradley Wiggins's attempt. So I'm there or thereabouts on Wiggins on Odin's, and that wasn't quite the fastest day there. It was relatively high air density. It was 119 and it was 19 degrees. So full race kit, fast day. Wiggins is probably just about doable at sea level.
Hey.
Yeah.
Knighthood is heading your way. If you break the hour record, you'll be knighted by the Queen.
Knighted by the Danish king instead.
Okay. Well, there you go. You have 2 options. All right. I would like to, so those of you who are just joining us online, my name is Lewis. I am a cycling coach here in Malaysia. I do this live YouTube streaming every Saturday, 4 p.m. Malaysia, 9 a.m. UK, and usually we go for a deep dive into different topics. And if this is kind of thing that you like, consider subscribing to the channel, hit the bell button so you are notified every time we have new content coming right up. So we want to dive into questions that we have collected on social media. Okay, we put it up collecting questions on Facebook and Instagram. So we have people from all around the world, from Canada, from UK, from Malaysia. And so Dan, are you ready? More questions heading your way. All right, so we have Sandy Waller, who just posted a question just now, and saying this: a lot of riders you are testing end up with tall stack heights. What is the thinking behind this? And I'm combining this question with one from Abdul Azim, a track cyclist here in Malaysia as well. Is lower stack slower? So take it away.
We have again, it comes back to the Danish stuff. We have this team high stack, team low stack thing, and we're always laughing and joking about it in tests of who's going to win for each rider. It comes back to what's the CDA? Simple as that. That you want the best power production to the best CDA value. There's not much more than that, and that tends to vary depending on the speed you're going, or the duration, I guess, which is probably the correct term. So shorter events, higher power anyway, and less aerobic contribution, so less worries about occlusion of blood flow to the legs that may cost you some aerobic performance on short duration stuff, whereas on longer stuff, where both aerobic power and also comfort and stability of position tend to be more dominant, then higher stacks tend to win out most of the time. I think as well, a lot of it's just been driven historically. Everyone's like, slam your bike, get it as low as you can, and that's been things for decades in time trialing, right?
Yep.
But then when you've got better skin suit technology, better integrated helmets, better control over head position, then actually most of the time a higher stack height just tends to be better aerodynamically. There's not much more to it other than that, really, to be honest. It's not always the case and varies person to person. I mean, you can see I've not got a huge amount of stack on my bike, but then I have pretty weird geometry. I'm a 6 foot, so 183 centimeters, and I have very short legs, so I have quite a low saddle height and inducively quite a low stack, even though I've got quite long arms and long torso. But yeah, it's just unique. It's just optimize the riders and follow the data. There's not like we need to force you into this position because that is going to be the fastest. It's like, well, that would be very naive to believe that a set position works for every rider. It's just what works.
And in your case, when you test anyone, any client, or any consultancy work that you're doing, it's based on the evidence that you have gathered. It's not based on an opinion. It's based on the CDA reading that you're getting. Is that right?
Yeah. Objectify it.
Yes, exactly.
For science.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Rob Shaw. Is it worth losing weight if you have a BMI of 20.6 to race TT or triathlon?
That sounds like a pretty low BMI to me.
Yep, pretty low.
I'm not one to shout about trying to lose weight. I think it's often not conducive to good time trial performance. Weight is largely irrelevant to TT performance, and I mean, like a good example, okay, it's not a time trial on the road where you have accelerations and climbs, but if you took an hour record, so like Wiggins at sea level, made him weigh exactly 0 kilos, so his bike weighs nothing, he weighs nothing, he'd go about 500 meters further. and that's like getting rid of 85 kilos, 90 kilos of mass. It's like it's just so irrelevant for flat
Yes.
time trials.
So weight is irrelevant for flat time trial. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, when you start braking, going up hills, then it just starts to become more important, but its relative importance is still very low. And I think a lot of the time as well, if you're trying to lose weight, then a lot of other things start to go downhill as well. Your power production can drop off, your morale quite literally can drop off. If you're constantly in a calorie deficit, then you probably don't feel quite great. So there's a whole lot of negatives to trying to drop weight, and especially if you don't feel it's necessary. Maybe if you're going to race, I don't know, Ironman 70.3 in Nice, which has an hour and a half full gas climb, then probably start considering a bit of weight loss. But it depends where you are and where you're going and what you actually need. And quite often I'd say the opposite is true. Put a bit more mass on, be a bit more comfortable, and have the power.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Now we have Warren from Canada. Warren is the Canadian Zwift national champion, and he asked 1X versus front Mac, time gain over 40 kilometers at 49 kmh. Wow. So you're doing the mental calculation going on here?
Give or take about 20 seconds or so. It varies bike to bike, depends on the front derailleur. Are you mechanical, are you Di2, ETAP, whatever. Good, again, depends, but about 5 watts or so you're going to save.
By getting rid of the front derailleur.
Yeah, that speed, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So we'll be seeing a lot of front Mac on eBay after this podcast. Okay. We have Sam Roper asking, what is the fastest commercially available skin suit for the average UK time trialist?
Sam Roper, I think I know Sam.
You know Sam. All right.
Yeah, from Loughborough Uni and see around a Derby. It's the fastest commercially available skin suit for, was it a UK time trialist?
Yes, UK time trialist.
I don't know what I can say. Watch this space with Vortec, I would say.
Sorry?
Watch this space with Vortec.
Okay. Vortec at £7,500. Not exactly affordable to most of
I think
us.
they're a bit cheaper. It depends on what you're buying. I think their TKO1 suit is about £3,000, which everyone will go, that's ridiculous. So actually, value for money, it's pretty amazing. How many people would spend 3 times that on a bike that would save them barely anything, whereas their skin suits genuinely are the fastest. But yeah, we're lucky that we have a commercial arrangement with the track team.
We love to hate you.
We can access that.
Now we hate you. Okay.
They're really smart people. They put the time, the money, and the effort in, and they just understand aerodynamics properly.
Yes. And the Malaysian track cycling team is using that for the Olympics as well.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the Vortec has a different price range of their skin suits?
Yeah, I think, again, I haven't looked in finer detail, but I think they have like an increased cost if you're having to overbrand, because obviously a lot of manufacturers sponsor nations who are going to the Olympics, and if you wanted to buy a suit and then say the Vortex suit becomes a BioRacer suit or a whatever, pick your brand that is sponsoring you, and you need to make it look like that one. Or Adidas, for example, who sponsor GB.
Yes.
Adidas don't make all the GB skin suits for the Olympics, they just brand it up as such. Same situation. So I imagine, there's just a cost for that, which is fair enough at the end of the day. If I was selling WattShop extensions and someone wanted to brand them up as Vision or Shimano or whatever, then I'd want to charge more.
Yep, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that didn't answer the question. So anyway, I'd say, watch the space on Vortec. Beyond that...
something coming up soon? Is that what you're hinting?
Yeah, they've been putting a few bits and bobs out, advertising that they are due to have an announcement, but I can't say much more there.
Okay, so watch out for Vortec. And the last question I have from social media is, what's the voltage penalty for front end wires? Brake cables, shifting cables hanging in the front.
Pretty terrible. Yeah. I know. I hate cables, and I've just changed. That's probably the only cable you can see on my bike.
Right behind the stem.
Yeah, right behind the stem, but it still haunts me.
It still haunts you.
Yeah.
ETAP. You should go to ETAP then. There's no cables then.
No, because there is with DTAP and TT group sets, because they need the little blip box. Unless you can hide that blip box, you've still got cables out in the way.
Oh, so for the front end shifting, you still need that blip box.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
frustrating. But anyway, cable. So cable is effectively a cylinder, and cylinders are horrific aerodynamically. So if you put a cylinder next to an airfoil, so for equal drag, the airfoil would be about 14 times bigger in frontal area. 14. So if you have a cable that's, I don't know, 5 mil wide, then the airfoil can be 70 mil wide, which is pretty big for the same amount of drag. So you're talking, cable hanging out in the wind. Let's say it's come from your base bar and it's going down into, I don't know, your down tube or something like that. You're talking in the region of 2-3 watts per cable.
Wow.
But yeah, the 8K an hour.
Okay, we have more questions from our online audience. Jershin, okay, let me put this up again. Do you practice one riding position with the lowest CDA, or you practice multiple positions with equally low CDA?
As in the sense where I have multiple different positions that I would move between for particular purposes. It's a bit of a weird question in a way. I think I tend to have one position across nigh on all my bikes. So my track bike, my training TT bike, and my race TT bike are pretty much the same saddle position, armrest position, extension, etc., etc. Just consistency, comfort, and the fact that testing it on the road and the track, it works for me. And that's not always the case. That some people might have different results out in the real world versus indoor on the track with a fixed gear bike. And might have different reasons as well for changing that, for power production or comfort out on the road. But on the whole, just practice everything being as consistent as I can across one position, and familiarity breeds confidence. So if you're familiar with your bike and you know exactly how it feels, how it handles, and what everything should exactly feel like, where your helmet should sit on your back, where your hands feel, or what the saddle feels like, all that stuff is constant.
Yes.
Then every single time you get on to ride it, whether it's training or racing, it feels like a second home, and you're confident to chuck the bike into every corner and know exactly how everything's going to respond.
Okay, speaking of comfort and confidence, you show us a little bit on of the Aerodynamic cockpit, but what are the advantages of using the Aerodynamic cockpit versus what we typically use out there? Arm caps, aluminium extensions. Can you just give us some of the advantages that the Aerodynamic extension system delivers?
Sure. So originally the whole purpose behind going down an integrated extension system was just the aerodynamic drag improvement, and it does vary person to person. So cockpit to cockpit, I guess, depends on the armrest you already have, the extensions, the angle, etc. But from a CDA term, CDA improvement, you're talking around a 0.02 to 0.04 improvement, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. It just depends, again, on the person. And that's just from the aerodynamics of having a profiled extension that fits your arm well, reduces the gap between the extension and the arm, and just make sure that you keep flow attachment around there. So that's just the outright aero improvement. But then there's also the stiffness, the comfort, the ergonomics that go with that. So from a stiffness perspective, these are pretty outrageous. So the ISO standard for a set of extensions, you've got to basically hang 15 kilos off the end and not break. I mean, we've had 45 kilos off the end of one and had literally 4 mil deflection, which is
wow, it's really stiff.
Yeah, really stiff. So they're just confidence inspiring when you're on rough surfaces, hit potholes, that kind of thing. You know that they're strong, they're stiff, they're not going to break, and you can just fire on through. But then also the fact that you've got full support along your forearm, high-sided armrest as well. So you're fully locked in. You can hold a position a lot easier, a lot longer, without fatigue, without duress. You can just relax into it and not have to worry about sustaining that position quite so much. And when you can relax, everything becomes a whole lot easier.
Is it possible for you to get onto the cockpit, and for those of us who have never seen something like that, to see the benefit of that, how the whole arm rests on it? Wow, so the whole forearm is flushed on the extension. Whereas a lot of the aluminium, we're just holding on to tiny tubes and we're just clinging on with our fingers, and
you'd end up with a gap.
Yes, and that gap is causing drag too.
Yeah, it's pretty horrific aerodynamically.
Oh, that is such a cool cockpit. All right, that's on my Christmas shopping list. I'm too old. I don't think Santa delivered gifts to me anymore, so I have to put it on my shopping list. So one last question from Modern. He's putting up here, what would be the typical difference in CDA between a TT and a track bike?
About 0.01. So if you were about 175 on your TT, you're probably about 165 on your track, give or take.
So that's very, very minuscule.
Yeah, it's small. It's what? 3%?
Yeah. 3%. That's pretty big.
Maths, brain's gone. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hi guys. So then this is really, really helpful session. I have a lot of fun talking to you. Before we sign off, I just want to say that from the bottom of my heart, how much you and your mates at Huub Wattbike, Johnny, and the whole gang, how much you guys have inspired us. You know, when we first heard about your team, we just joined our first track race. We have 6 months to practice for it. We never had any experience on track, and we got third place in team pursuit and individual pursuit. That was like freaking amazing. And then when we heard about your team and how you guys are smashing it against the big boys, that really gave us that courage and belief that, hey, we can try this, we can do this too, so I'm sure that this is not the first time someone has come up to you and say something like that, but just massive thank you for your positive attitude, the can-do spirit, and that pursuit for excellence, whether it's in the consultancy, in the product that you produce, and making yourself accessible to the bigger audience, inspiring more people to improve. Your journey has been a heck of a story. Continue that. I'm sure one day our paths will cross. And thank you very much, Dan. And on that, sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate coming onto the show and always talking about this kind of stuff, and cool to inspire people. And it's one of the reasons behind doing things like this. It's always nice to talk about what we've done, and people can obviously learn and hopefully get some motivation from it and go on and achieve cool stuff. And hopefully more people get involved in the sport and go out there and do outrageous things and get great results. Exactly.
And on that note, guys, we are signing off the show. We are dedicating the following 4 weeks as of aerodynamics weeks. Coming up next week will be another crazy cyclist, pursuiter, time trialist, and his name is Ashton Lambie, all the way from the US, a teammate of Dan as well, and he will be coming online next Saturday at 9 p.m. Malaysia. That would be 2 p.m. in UK, and he's based out in the Midwest in the US. So it will be really cool talking to to Ashton. That would be next week. Would be very close to the first anniversary of him breaking the world record in individual pursuit that he achieved at the Pan Am Games about a year ago. So we'll be talking to Ashton. So guys, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate that you spend time with us, posting questions and all that. Have fun on your bike. God bless. Take care.